Hi, it's Will from StormTheCastle.com, and here on YouTube you know me as Epic Fantasy, and this is my latest tutorial. This is kind of a multi-part tutorial, but it is predominantly how to make diorama water easily. And we use this wonderful product here from Elmer's. Washable no-run school glue gel and washable clear glue. Pretty neat and easy. I got some tips and tricks for you on how to do it. We make a little kind of a river. Can you see that? Kind of a river, a waterfall, cascading waterfall, and water. It's really easy to do. Oh, and one more thing. And so let me tell you, well, I'll tell you a little bit more about what that is and what this diorama is after the introduction. Listen, if you want to this whole video is about making the diorama. If you want to skip to just the water stuff and how to use the Elmer's gel to make the water, I'll put a link here in the video, and that way you can skip right to that. Otherwise, this is all about making the Fountain of Youth diorama with Ponce de Leon. Thanks. Dioramas, origami, catapults, and treasure stays, telescopes, terrariums, bonsai trees, and paper games, swords and shields, and real blacksmithing, model rockets, animation. I teach the art of real creation. StormTheCastle.com. Let's make something. Alright, so let's take a look. I wanted to just explain to you a little bit about this diorama. It's kind of fun. And what it is, it's Ponce de Leon and the Fountain of Youth. And it was a whole process that I went through creatively to come up with this. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And I'm also going to do a video, if you'd like to see it, on the creative process and how something like this developed. But here, there's Ponce de Leon, right? He's got his golden armor and his halberd, and he was searching for the Fountain of Youth. And even though I think that's actually not true, it's just kind of something it's through the time we've kind of come up with that. And he did discover Florida, but I don't think he actually was looking for the Fountain of Youth. But I was, taking on. I says, how many different things can I do with the water effects with the clear glue gels? And I said, well, I can do. So I wrote a list. And well, anyway. But let's take a look here at something interesting I think about this diorama is, other than the usual stuff, is, the Fountain of Youth is supposed to turn back time, right? Kind of reverse time. But then it got me to thinking, gee, how about if the fountain itself was reversed gravity, right? Let me take this down. So inside there's the actual Fountain of Youth, if you can see that. I'm going to shine a flashlight in there. See, and it's bubbling upside down. Can you see it? So upside down, so the fountain itself is actually in reverse too. So, and it's almost like an Escher. It reminds me of an Escher drawing. Where the fountain coming from nowhere, upside down, backwards, and then it bubbles up to the earth. It flows along a river, and then down the waterfall and into the water. So I just think that's kind of interesting. All right, so that's the diorama. It's Ponce de Leon and the Fountain of Youth. Okay, so there are a few different types, and I ordered the gel, and it's got a light blue color to it, and the clear glue. So you might want to check. I'll have links to these products in the description of the video below and on the web tutorial. But so I did a little bit of brainstorming to figure out how I was going to do this and what kind of things I wanted to show. And there were a few different things I wanted to show, like a waterfall and a babbling stream. But the first thing you should do if you're making a diorama there is lay it out on paper to kind of get a sense for what you're going to make. It'll make it a lot easier when it comes to making it. And I had 4 particular points that I wanted to show. So I cut myself a base, a board, just to put the diorama on, and it's about 10 inches by 12 inches. It's like 9 3/4 by 12, I think, but just to give you an idea. And then I drew out that pattern on that base, so I could it would make it a lot easier for me to build it. Visualize the size of everything. And now this is really important if you're going to do diorama water, is you need to contain the water while it's drying, and that glue will seep out everywhere. So I put a border. Those are 3/8 inch squares. I put a border all the way around it to form a tray, and then I sealed it all really good with hot glue all the way around, and then I double sealed it just to make sure I get a good seal. We didn't want it leaking anywhere, or else it could ruin your table or stick your diorama to the table or something. And then now I had my basic shapes, so I cut them out of foam. That's 1 inch thick XPS foam, extruded polystyrene. You can buy it in Home Depot. Dow also makes it. It's on Amazon. And I glued those pieces in. And you know I love this foam. If you watch my channel, because it's so easy to carve and work with. But yeah, it's strong. It has strength. It'll hold its shape. Now, I don't think I showed this in this video, but sticking two pieces together, you know, hot glue can melt that foam somewhat if the setting is too high on your heat gun, on your hot glue gun. So I actually used a paper between those two pieces. I put the hot glue on the paper, glued it down, then put more hot glue on the paper, and then glued the second piece of foam to it. So, you know, a good technique is, notice how I put the glue on the wooden board there, and then you can pause and give it a few seconds before you actually glue the foam down. And that'll help prevent the foam from just melting on you if your hot glue gun gets hot. So I laid out all my various pieces, cut them and measured them just to give a rough shape according to what I thought the diorama was I wanted for the diorama. And there's like the cascading waterfall section there, so there's several pieces. It looks good, you know, and I particularly like the pieces in the water. And then I started carving, and I used a bunch of different tools. X-Acto knife to carve out my little river, and I also used a styro cutter. It's a neat little tool. Every once in a while, this comes in handy. Like I wanted to cut all the way through, just cut a piece right out of that foam, and the styro cutter came real in handy for that. Just like the other stuff, you can see a link to that in the description of the video down below. I also used a Dremel tool for this to do some of the carving. It helped a lot because, you know, with a Dremel you can make short work of any kind of foam carving, you know, depending on the different bits you have for it. So I'm not going to show you all of this. I did, you know, more carving and I added more pieces and kind of got it to be, you know, the final shape. And once it was the final shape that I was pretty happy with, now we're going to do the water. Right here is where you're going to be coming in. If you skipped right from the beginning of this video to this part, this is where we do the water. And I wanted to point out a couple of things here. I used a darker blue in the deeper parts of the water. I mean, it's optional, but it actually makes it look nicer. It'll make the water, give the water more depth. And then you add some white to it. And then you go towards the shallower parts of the water, which in this case is near the bank. See, so now your blue is not just a uniform color. It gives it a little bit of depth, you know, and of course the deeper the water, the darker the blue. You know, and the same goes with swampy water like greens and stuff like that. So I tinkered with this for a while and, you know, added more layers and this and that and added more. And then I finally did some light white details where things were frothy, like around the rocks and on the babbling brook and stuff like that. You know, just dotted. See how it dots by dabbing the paintbrush straight on? It dots it. It's kind of nice. So that's it. You know, have fun with the painting. And then, you know, I painted the terrain. And the same thing applies. Look, see how I've used different shades of green. That's one key if you're trying out arts and crafts and different things. One critical thing is, you know, you rarely use the same, just one single shade of a color. You're always, it's more realistic if you add different tints of the same color. You know, different shades of green. See how that looks much better than just a plain green. And the same thing with the gray for the stone. And then once I painted all those stones, I'm actually doing highlights there with the lighter color gray. I added some white to it, and now I'm doing highlights on the stones. So the painting is all done. Now we're going to do add the water, and I'm going to show you a bunch of different techniques. Like, you know, you could be creative with this. We're going to do the upside down fountain, the actual fountain of youth, the one that's bubbling upside down. And how I did that was I pierced a hole where I wanted it, and then I soaked a cotton ball in the clear glue. And then see, now I pushed the cotton ball through with a paintbrush, just like that, to form a fountain. And I used that tool because I wanted a fountain, like a bubbling fountain, and there you go. So it looks good, a little bit of touch-up work. Now we have an upside-down fountain. That is the fountain of youth. And of course, it's got all that clear glue on it, so it's going to dry that way. All right, and now the waterfall. I cut from a 2-liter bottle of soda. I cut myself a strip of plastic like this, and I used the natural curve in the bottle to help me. And then I glued it on with hot glue. And then just curved it a little bit to form the waterfall, and then glued the bottom on too. And now you've got a nice what would you say, groundwork for your waterfall. Just as easy as that. It's a really simple technique, but it works well. And from there, you know, it'll be ready for the clear glue or the gel, the blue gel to be added. So let's do it. You have some options. You could just go with the plain clear because we've painted our base blue. But I'm going to add some blue paint to it. And you got to be careful with this because a little bit of paint goes a long way. So there I was like, that's a little too much paint. I didn't realize it was going to be that thick. But it's okay. And it dries rather clearish. So it dries different than it looks there. A little lighter. But, you know, just be aware of that. You can always put in more paint if you need more acrylic paint. But you can't take any out. So, well, I guess you could dilute it with more clear gel, clear glue. So just carefully add it. And if you're a little rough with this, it's going to cause bubbles that could potentially stay. So I poured them in and also poured it on the waterfall and then used a brush to kind of get some brush strokes. And a big thing about the waterfall is that as the glue is drying over the course of time, and it's going to take a long time for this glue to dry if you put it on really thick. But, you know, over the next hour or two, you check on it, and then you can brush it to get striations in it as it's hardening, you know, to give it that waterfall kind of like look where it's not perfectly flat like that. I think I show a little bit of that. But I recommend, you know, depending on how thick you want your water, is to do layers. Do a thin layer like this and then let it dry overnight. It takes a long time to dry this Elmer's. And then you can add another layer and let that dry. I mean, it takes time. You don't have to do a lot of work. It just takes time for it to dry. You know, I put a fan on it to dry it, but that caused ripples. Which, if you want ripples, good. But if you don't want ripples, oh, here you go. There's that technique I was showing. As it's starting to dry and it gets a little bit of tack to it, you can use some kind of a tool or something to get those striations. And then I added white paint to give it that beautiful frothy look. See? And so that's just about it for all the water techniques. We've done a river, we've done a fountain, we've done a waterfall, we've done the pool, the pond of water. So now let's finish off this diorama. And now our seeker of the fountain of youth, right? Gonna make him. I did him up real quick with some ProCreate clay, which is a 2-part epoxy that you mix together and then shape it, and it hardens within about 2 hours. I made him and I put him I glued him onto the diorama, and then I went ahead and did a variety of details. Now I wanted to say something while you're watching me do the details and whatnot. I wanted to say, you know, I mean, I did the diorama this way, but there's 1,000 ways you can do yours. You can just glue cutouts. You know, you can. You know, I use paper mache, you can use cardboard, you can use 1,000 materials you can use to, you don't have to use the same kind of materials I use. The real critical thing about this tutorial, the important thing is, you know, I wanted to show you and a wonderful Elmer's new types of gels that they use that are just inexpensive, easy to get. You can get them on Amazon, and use them to make water effects, real cheap. It's really kind of neat. So I have a whole mess of Woodland Scenics, you know, diorama making materials, so I could have fun with bushes and little tiny flowers, and I wanted to add, you know, because it's the Fountain of Youth, I wanted to add, you know, a little bit of color to it, because it just kind of signifies the, you know, the Fountain of Youth, you know, a little bursting with color. I probably should have done more color, but there you go. That's that. Now I finished it off by painting our little adventurer. Poor guy. He found it and then died. You know, in Ponce de Leon, if I remember correctly, he died like from an arrow. He took an arrow or something. I should have put an arrow in him. But my thought, yeah, this is his conquistador helmet. That's that. Let's take one last look at it. And, you know, I appreciate you watching this video. Have fun. You know, I must have 50 diorama making tutorials and all kinds of stuff. I mean, I get 800 videos here on my channel. Why don't you take a look, poke around, have some fun. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. If you make this project, be sure to send me a picture. I'll send you a certificate of contribution. There you go, the finished diorama. Thanks for watching that video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're a subscriber, thanks for subscribing to my channel. If you're not a subscriber, hit that button. I always have lots of fun and interesting and very creative projects. I do 2 new ones every week. As an example, here's a couple more videos you might want to watch.